Hello and welcome to this edition of Ringside Digest. I'm your host, Kirk Day, along with my co-hosts Noah Byrne and Nick Miller. And in this video, we're going to go over the first night of playoff hockey for this season. We're going to go over the games, just a brief little go over them. We also got a bit of news about some a new GM potentially going to be heading to a different team. One just got fired. We also got some news on a former NHL star who did something pretty cool. We're going to go over that, and we're just going to go over the games that are going to happen tonight. Just a quick preview before the game. So we're going to have all that in this video. But before we get into it, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more content from us, because we're going to have a lot of stuff coming through at the playoffs. The first night was pretty good, as you'll see in this video, so I mean, we're only excited for what's coming for the rest of the playoffs, and it's going to be very exciting, so make sure to subscribe if you want to see it. Without any further ado, we're going to go straight into our first game of the night, which was the Islanders versus the Hurricanes. Now, this game, first game of the night, was pretty good. The Hurricanes win 2-1. They got 2 power play goals. They were 2 for 4. I mean, in this game, I'll say Carolina did look like the better team. I wouldn't say by much, but they did look like the better team. And the Islanders will have to limit their penalties if they do want to win this series. I mean, the Islanders outshot the Hurricanes, but still, the Hurricanes definitely did have a more complete game in this game. So I do think they had a better result this game. Like I said, the Islanders will have to limit their penalties if they do want a chance of winning this series, because those 2 power play goals, the only 2 goals that Carolina scored in the game, and that won them the game. So the Islanders are going to have to watch that. Like, what do you guys think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, this series is such a toss-up from the beginning. Both teams, they were kind of battling for the Metro. I think they both look phenomenal in this game. I'm not going to say much about it because, it's that they were going back and forth all game. But what we do know for certain is that Sebastian Aho is going to come out on top of this series.
No, you can definitely tell that Carolina is the better team, but I think it was just such a it was like a feel-out game, you know what I mean? Like, it was very well defensively played, and you saw the power play be the killer for the Islanders in the end, and like you said, they will have to limit the penalties because Carolina's power play is very potent.
It is. That first power play goal, absolutely wonderful, too. It was very, the 4 passes, tic-tac-toe goal, it was fantastic. So, their power play is good, and they're going to have to watch that if they want a chance at winning. The Islanders will. In the second game of the night here, we had the Panthers versus the Bruins. Now, I mean, the best team in the league, what can you say? They pretty much played like it. They won 3-1. Florida's only goal came off an Orlov mistake, and they couldn't generate much more, to be honest with you. I mean, Alex Lyon made a few nice saves, but ultimately it wasn't enough. They couldn't get much from that. A few good saves, but he also let in a few weak ones. So, for this, I mean, the Bruins, they played like the Bruins. Gritty, it's a big game, they're going back and forth. Not on the score sheet, but at each other. So, I mean, it's a pretty much a typical game of what you expect from Boston. I did like this game, though. It was a pretty good watch for this one. What do you think about it?
Yeah. The energy the Bruins play with is absolutely unmatched. They got the whole fans over there in TD Garden all together with them, and it certainly makes for a hard game for the Panthers to play. I know I can't be the only one that wants to see some more Matthew Tkachuk, Brad Marchand fighting scrums back and forth. It's so good for the game, and it generates so many people watching it. Another guy I want to talk about too, Tyler Bertuzzi. The Bruins got him at the trade deadline. He looks phenomenal. He plays with a gritty, hard-nosed kind of game, and you can never go wrong with a bit of that in the playoffs. But I think it was Nick Cousins. He just blatantly takes his stick, brings it back to the bench, and just tries to break it. And I mean, I can't be the only one that didn't think that was a penalty, or that it wasn't called a penalty. I was kind of baffled at that.
Yeah, and about what you said about Tkachuk and Marchand, if you want to say that Marchand walked so the Tkachuks could run, I mean, that's basically what happened. Marchand was like that before the Tkachuks were even in the league. Marchand's been doing that since the day he was in the NHL. I remember, back in the finals in 2011, he was using Daniel Sedin's head as a punching bag, as a rookie. So, that's something I definitely want to see more of. I thought the Bruins showed that they weren't feeling the pressure at all in that game. All the pressure's on the Bruins. There's no pressure on the Panthers. It was just kind of why I expected the Panthers to win game 1. Now I still do expect the Bruins to win in 6, but I fully thought the Panthers were going to come out and beat them in game 1, but I was proven wrong. The Bruins weren't feeling the pressure at all.
Yeah. Another thing, you got to give credit to Alex Lyon there. He made some very, very, very good saves. Kept the Panthers in it for a little bit, but that's such a hard arena to go in and play. Yeah. The TD Garden for years has been a brutal place to play. It's almost like the Yankee Stadium, the Fenway Parks, that kind of atmosphere, and it's a very hard spot to play.
Yeah, now that Bertuzzi assist as well, absolutely fantastic. And Allmark was being Allmark. Just another fantastic game from him. Like, you can't really expect more because that's what he's been playing like all season. So you can tell it was a classic Boston game, like what they played last night. And with what I have as my game of the night is the Wild versus the Stars. Now, this one was a doozy. This one went to double overtime, and the Wild won 3-2. I mean, it was a tough and gritty game by both sides. The Wild tied it up late with a Hartman goal in overtime to win it. I mean, like, it was just a very, very back-and-forth game, the whole game. As well, Joe Pavelski left the game after hitting his head on the ice after a huge hit by Matt Dumba. I wouldn't say it was a suspension, but it should definitely have been a penalty at least. A human interference penalty, like roughing it could have been many things. But this game, I gotta say, an absolutely fantastic game. I didn't see much of it because I was asleep and I had to work, but by the time I woke up, the game was still on. So I seen the tail end of it, but it was a very, very good game from what I saw, and a back-and-forth game. What do you think about it, Noah?
Well, yeah, we live in Eastern Canada, so I think we were all pretty late watching it. But like, I gotta agree with you on that. This was my game of the night as well. Both teams fought hard and they battled hard to the full, however long it was, 60 minutes and then 2 overtimes. I'm not gonna comment on the Dumba hit because I'm kind of in a mix-up. I don't know if it was suspendable or if it wasn't, so I'm not gonna talk about it.
Yeah, I think Joe Pavelski needs to wear a little bit more padding on his helmet in playoff games. That's multiple times that's happened now. I'm gonna agree with you. That was the game of the night for me as well. I loved the physicality in that game. There was a few calls like that one that had the whole arena was up in flames for a little bit over that, like when they called it back from a major penalty, which I think I agree with. I don't think it was suspendable. It looked to me like it was shoulder to shoulder, but then again, we didn't have all the angles that they have, so we'll just see what the league does on that.
Yeah, and not to mention, one of the players who didn't play very much in the ice but was very, very noticeable was Brock Faber. I mean, he saved the game in overtime. He only had 17 minutes on ice, but those 17 minutes, he was noticeable. He wasn't just a shadow out there. Like, those 17 minutes that he played was very, very noticeable, and you can tell that he's going to be a stud in the league for a very, very long time in the future. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all I can say about that game. Absolutely fantastic. It's going to be a long series if it's going to go to double overtime. Both these teams, I think, are going to be very tired by the end, so, I mean, we'll see what happens in the second round with whoever advances. And with our final game of the night, it was the Kings versus the Oilers. Now, this one, I mean, Edmonton lost. That's all. They lost. They blew it. They were up at some point during the game, but the Kings win 4-3 in overtime. They tied it up with 17 seconds left in the game while on the power play, and it was also a huge game by Kopitar, as you can probably see on the right there. It was a goal and 3 assists. But if the Kings want to keep winning like this game, they're going to have to shut down Draisaitl and McDavid. They shut down McDavid this game partially. I mean, he had a few chances, but he missed. But Draisaitl had 2 goals. That's one player. That's the other player you're going to have to shut down if you want to win this series. And that they did it this game partially to an extent, but you're going to want to do it every game, and that's not going to be easy for the LA Kings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even though Edmonton lost, I thought that they played phenomenal. I'm only 21 years old, and they're I've been watching hockey for a little while, and they're one of the best teams I've seen play hockey in a long time. You got McDavid flying down the wing, Leon tucking two last night. You got a rock in the blue line there, and Matthias Ekholm. He, by the way, who continues to prove that he is the steal of the trade deadline. So, I love this Oilers team. If you watched the previous video, I have them going pretty far in the playoffs this year. But love Edmonton. But I can't not give any credit to LA. They battled back. They fought hard. And Kempe, one of the most underrated players in the league. He potted 2 last night, he's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, you got to give credit where credit is due. And LA came back and they battled after they were down on the road last night. That's one of the most tough things to do in hockey is when you're down on the road to battle back in the game. And Edmonton played almost, I would say it was perfect. They played perfect in the first period, and they just took their foot off the gas after that. It was just, I really enjoyed watching the first period, but then in the second period, it was almost like they were letting LA come back into the game. They were letting them in and all that stuff. But I've also got to mention the play of Mikey Anderson. I mean, we've talked about Mikey Anderson on this before, but Mikey Anderson played phenomenal. I mean, yes, he did take a penalty on McDavid on that play where I'm talking about, where he made a really fantastic play in the first period. But McDavid would have scored if he didn't take that penalty. So, and that's another thing. I want to give credit to McDavid. Even a night where he doesn't put up points, he drew 2 penalties in 31 seconds. The guy is an absolute machine. He'll always make an effect on the game. And in Game 2, for Oilers fans, hopefully he pots a few chances.
Yeah, it's definitely the most challenging thing to do is get a win on the road, in the playoffs especially. A win on the road in the playoffs, you're looking good if you get one. At least one. In 2, it's perfect. But especially in Edmonton, where they have that fan base along with Connor McDavid, I mean, that's the best case scenario that could have happened for them in this game. And now, with the game's over, we're going to go over just the NHL news. We got the Flames and Brad Treliving are parting ways. Now, I mean, this one comes with a bit of surprise, to be honest with you. Elliot Friedman tweeted this. I mean, it was also coming from the Calgary Twitter. Hearing Brad Treliving will not return as Calgary GM. This was also later tweeted by Frank Cervalli. Early indications that Daryl Sutter will remain as Flames head coach for now. Fair to say that the fact played a role on whether or not Treliving would remain at his post. Now, this one's a bit odd because I think that it should have been the opposite, realistically. I think that Daryl Sutter should have been gone because you can't really blame Brad for bringing in Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. Like, those two guys, they might not have had the best seasons, but that trade I wouldn't say is still a loss. This season, yes, because Matthew Tkachuk had a fantastic season. But you can't just blame that on Huberdeau and Weegar because that got to be as well at some point a part of the coaching. Not getting that to, like, where they want to be. So, I mean, I think it probably should have been opposite, or at least do both if you're going to do one. That's all I can really say about that. I don't really agree with just getting rid of Treliving. So, what do you think about this one, Noah?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a top candidate for a team looking for a GM. You know, he went out and he made that big move. You know, you got to give credit there. There's a lot of GMs who won't make a splash like that. I'm kind of baffled, too, with the fact that Daryl Sutter wasn't fired, but Brad Treliving was. You know, we've seen, like you said, we've seen how bad or how the drop-off of Jonathan Huberdeau was. You know, I'm at a loss for words as how Daryl Sutter has put this team into the ground.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. I don't think that Daryl Sutter should have been back this next season, and we still don't know. Maybe he will be back. Maybe he won't. They said it looks like as of right now that he'll be back, but I can't see how Huberdeau has a season like that. All those star players have just that much of a drop off, and the team looked great. Like they arguably, well, I don't think they look better than they did last season, going into the season, but for sure, they definitely looked like they were going to be able to make the playoffs, and to not get it done and to keep your coach around and fire the GM that basically kept the team afloat during a season where, during an offseason where you lose almost everything and made some really good moves. I really don't get this move.
Yeah, and we also can't forget about getting Nazem Kadri last offseason, too. Like, that's another huge addition that just, it panned out, but it didn't go to plan, I would say. So, I mean, still, like you said, Nick, we might not see Daryl Sutter there next year, but it's still questionable if he will come. I don't really agree with it overly.
One more thing, they're going to have a big decision to make next offseason. They got guys like Elias Lindholm, Mikael Backlund who are expiring. They need to get the right guy in that office because that's 2 of their top 2 centers. They need to bring them back. And I think I've seen a couple different posts on Twitter saying that they don't want to commit to the Flames long term. I don't blame them. You know, plain and simple. You need to get a guy in there who's going to be committed, or like in terms of a GM, you need to get a guy who's going to be in there and make the right moves and get the Flames to where they want to be, and that's the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. And also, the Flames announced that Don Maloney will be taking over as president of hockey operations and interim GM for the time being, just while they're on the search for a new one. And with our final story here today, we have Zdeno Chara has completed the Boston Marathon. Now, this one's nothing really too extreme in the terms of hockey news nowadays, but it's still pretty cool. You mean 46-year-old Zdeno Chara, wearing bib number 3333, finished the Boston Marathon in 3 hours, 28 minutes, and 23 seconds. I mean, that's pretty quick for a guy his age who's been through all the battles he's been in his career. So I mean, that's just something at the end. Pretty cool, you know. Love to see it. Guy is still out there doing his thing, supporting the city of Boston, even though he's from Europe. So yeah, it's pretty much where he's lived for probably half his life now, I would say, or more. So yeah, it's just pretty cool at the end. Just throw something out there.
Yeah, it's I love this, to move on past the NHL and to be a part of that community and be a part of Boston and what they stand for. As a Habs fan, technically I'm not supposed to like Zdeno Chara, but secretly all along, every time he touched the puck in Montreal, that he got booed. But like I said, secretly all along, I've always been a fan of his game. He was always a good leader, always a good locker room guy. So love to see it for Chara.
Yeah, I really like the whole rivalry we had going with Chara there, but now that we can move on from that, I can admit also that I like Chara's game a lot. I mean, he just played the game the right way, the big bad Bruin. He embodied what it means to be a Boston Bruin. So it's nice to see that he's still within the community there in Boston, and people can still see him going. And like, hey, he finished that in a pretty good time too. So it's nice to see that he's still moving around like that at his age.
Yeah, for sure. And now, just to end this video off, we're going to go over the games that we have tonight, April 18th. Just their first playoff games. It's the Rangers versus Devils, the Lightning versus the Leafs, the Jets versus the Golden Knights, and the Kraken versus the Avalanche. So I hope at least that this night will be as good as the first night was with the games. I mean, if it is,
I think it will be.
If it is, we're in a good spot. So, I mean, that's just the games tonight. We'll also be doing a video exactly like this tomorrow, going over the games that will happen tonight. We'll be watching those, give a little update, what we think on it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. So if you liked it, make sure to like the video, and also make sure to subscribe. Like I said at the beginning of the video, we're going to be posting a lot of stuff throughout the playoffs. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to give our thoughts on it. We're going to give our probably predictions after the next round and stuff, and our little analysis of it. So it's going to be pretty fun. So like I said, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more, and thank you for watching.